Thank you. Oh, thank you. Let's see. Thank you. I tell you what, it's so great to be home. We're not in session right now, so I get to leave Washington, D.C. and come back home with you all. And I just want you to know it is such a blessing to me to get to come here and be with all of you in person, right here in the district, right here at home in Georgia, because I'll have to tell you, this is God's country. And I know it because I traveled our entire country, and America is, listen, this is a blessing to America, the 14th district is. So we call the 14th district the mighty 14th. And I have to tell you all, thank you, honestly, from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to represent you, what we believe in, our faith in God, and the values that we stand for. And I do that to every single, the best of my ability with every ounce of my body. And I'm only 5'2.5". So it's a lot. First, I want to get started, and I want to recognize something. You all, we are so lucky. We really avoided a catastrophe with Hurricane Helene. And I know you all were probably watching the news just as much as I was, watching the path of that storm. And our district was in the direct storm path on all the predicted models. And I'm sure, like all of you, I was preparing for the storm, and I told my family, I said, I'm probably not going to have power for a week or 2 weeks. I don't know what we're about to go through. And listen, while we are blessed and lucky, our fellow Georgians got really wiped out. And so, you know, as thankful as I feel, and I'm sure you feel at the same time, we are all praying for our fellow Georgians that are really suffering a true catastrophe right now. I think on your way in, you may have gotten a handout about FEMA. Yes. Okay. So you all have some information. Please, if you have friends or family or know anyone affected, share that information with them. We want to make sure that, especially, you know, from the federal level, they get every single amount of help we can give them. And but, you know, as also with the state of Georgia is doing a good job as well. So I just wanted to touch base there and make sure that everyone gets the help and everyone has the information, as much information that I can pass out as possible. While we're on that note, I definitely want to just go over some of the affected, the people. As it stands right now, with the latest information, tragically, there's been 25 casualties in the state of Georgia. As of yesterday, there were 300 boil water advisory locations still in the state of Georgia. Over 2,500 Georgia National Guard have been called up to help, and that's thanks to Governor Kemp. Over 500,000 people were still without power as of yesterday. 41 counties, thankfully, have been approved for recovery by FEMA. We need FEMA to hurry up and get in there and help them out. And I had signed earlier, within the past week, signed the bipartisan letter for the funding that was approved. So I was really happy that that happened on behalf of everyone that represents the state of Georgia. So that is extremely important. Secondly, I want to talk about something that I think is extremely, extremely important, not for just us here at home, but for our friend and ally in Israel. We're watching that situation closely, all the developments that are happening in the Middle East. And, this is one of those times where, we're paying close attention to that, as I'm sure many of you are. And we stand by our friend and ally in Israel. So that's important. Now, number 3, I want to call out my constituent services. If you guys can raise your hands, where is it? There they are, Tracy and Valerie, and let's see, is Kayla here? No, Andrea maybe. Okay, yep, they're back there. They're getting thumbs up. The ladies in the back of the room, standing up at the back of the room, these are, I call them superheroes. They work here in our district office, and they provide the customer service to you all, our constituents. And as a former, well, I'm still a business owner, but I don't work in my construction company anymore. As a business owner, I view being a representative for you all as a providing customer service to you. And so I am always bragging about the amazing ladies that I have working in my offices, because I tell you what, these women can do anything. They can help you if you need help with your passport. If you're a veteran and you need help with any of your services or anything that you need, we want to help you. If you have issues with the IRS, we want to help you with those. If you have any issues with a government agency or department, we want to help you work through those issues. And these superstars back here in the back of the room, they can get it done. And I'm so proud of them. And you guys, ladies, I am thankful for you and appreciate everything you do. So yes, thank you. Give them a round of applause. And just speaking of them, if you have an issue, this is your chance. You can go to the back of the room, you can give them your contact information, and they can open a case for you. So that's why they're here tonight, and that's the most important job that we have on your behalf. So I just wanted to make sure that was mentioned. Now, so as your representative in the United States House of Representatives, I serve on 3 committees. And so we have our committee assignments. I serve on the COVID Select Committee. I serve on the Oversight Committee, where we investigate waste, fraud, and abuse. And believe me, there's plenty of it. And I serve on the Homeland Security Committee, the committee that basically investigates the invasion into our country every single day by the Biden-Harris administration. So in doing this and coming before you tonight in this town hall, I thought, well, I was talking with my team about how to conduct this, and I thought, I can stand up here and tell everyone what I do, or I can show them some video clips so that you can see firsthand what happens on committees. And so tonight I thought, wow, this is great. We're here in this awesome movie theater, and we've got a great big screen. So I'm going to show you some clips of what I do on the job in Washington, D.C., and then we can talk about some of these committee hearings, and then I'll also walk through important legislation that I've sponsored, co-sponsored, voted on, and then I think we have also a bunch of questions that you guys have written down, and so I'll get to those in the end. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on how we're going to do things so you know what to expect. So I think we've got somebody working the video screen up there, and we'll go ahead and start for the first video on the COVID Select Committee when I was questioning the former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo. Let's go ahead and play that. Mr. Cuomo. Let's talk about a tweet that you made, because there's an indictment out on a woman named Linda Sun. Linda Sun, and I'll read this indictment. It says on April 4th, politician number one publicly thanked PRC official number one, both in public remarks and in a post on Twitter. That's this right here. For helping arrange the donation, which was scheduled to arrive at JFK Airport in Queens, New York that day. So, Mr. Cuomo, you were thanking China, the PRC, while you had a woman named Linda Sun working for you, who has now been identified as a Chinese spy.
Now, today you have come before the American people in our committee. You have insulted many people, including people in this room and people watching this hearing who lost their loved ones because of your March 25th directive. And at the same time, you were thanking the Chinese government while you had a Chinese spy working for you. So, Mr. Cuomo, I've read a lot about you, including the fact that 13 women that work for you accused you of sexually inappropriate behavior, which, thanks to the Democrat DOJ, helped you out of that. But I'd like to say this, and I'll ask you, are you either the dumbest tool of the Chinese government, or did you know for a fact that you were being used by the Chinese spy that was working for you?
I've read a lot about you too, Congresswoman. I think this is a very serious matter.
It is serious, that's right.
She was a junior member in my team. I wouldn't recognize her if she was in this room today. But I think it is a serious matter. I don't think this was just in New York. I think there is an infiltration of Chinese, maybe Russian operatives.
The Democrat Party's definitely had a problem with Chinese spies. Yes, you're right. And I want to remind you, you're under oath.
Yeah. And I think it's a serious issue, and I think the federal government and the state government should work together on it. The state government doesn't really have the ability to do the international reconnaissance, but the federal government does, and I think they should work together to make sure they're doing the best they can to do the vetting.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter the indictment for the record.
So ordered.
Thank you.
I now recognize Dr.
How many of you know who Janice Dean is from Fox News? Yeah. Janice Dean and her husband were sitting in the audience of that hearing, who both lost their parents in nursing homes during the COVID shutdowns after Governor Cuomo had ordered that COVID-19 patients be placed in nursing homes. COVID-19 patients be placed in nursing homes with the most vulnerable people in our population, while Governor Cuomo brought down some of the strictest COVID-19 shutdown orders in the nation. New York, California, Michigan, some of these states were horrendous shutdown states. So when I mentioned that there were people in that audience of that hearing that had lost their parents, mother and father, lost their parents based on his directive, they were sitting right there. They were sitting right there and enduring him defend himself. And that questioning was extremely important because there is an investigation happening. There are indictments out because Governor Cuomo, it wasn't a junior member of his staff. It was actually a senior member of his staff. And that's why I reminded him he was under oath. That is a Communist Party spy from China that worked for him at the time and that has been busted working for another Democrat. That's very serious. I mean, we all know Eric Swalwell had a problem with Chinese spies, right? And Dianne Feinstein also, and others. This is a serious situation. What Governor Cuomo was doing was using his power as the governor of New York, and he was buying supplies from China. Remember, everyone, where COVID-19 came from? Wuhan lab, the Wuhan province. That is where COVID-19 came from. But here was the governor of New York using taxpayer money to buy supplies from China, and then at the same time use his Twitter account to thank China and also spread Chinese propaganda. It's unbelievable. And that's the type of work that we do on oversight. It's extremely important because you all deserve the truth. The American people deserve the truth of what happens. And it is the right thing for me to do to press them hard with questions like that, remind them that they're under oath. They cannot lie, because that same testimony that he just gave can also be used in a court of law because he was under oath and that hearing right there. You should also never forget the best lesson that the American people had about our government and about government abuse of power was during COVID-19, where our country was shut down. Businesses were forced to close. Schools were closed. Beaches were shut down. Parks were shut down. And in some states, police filled the streets and told people to stay in their houses. We should never, ever forget that. People lost their social media accounts, their freedom of speech, freedom of religions. Churches were closed. They were told in California they could not sing to praise God. This was less than 4 years ago. And I urge you, never, ever forget it. Never forget it, because that was, for all of us in our lifetimes, the first time we saw tyranny. And we witnessed it from our own government. We witnessed it from our own government. So we're going to go ahead and play the second video of what I had to say to Dr. Anthony Fauci.
You know that what this committee should be doing? We should be recommending you to be prosecuted. We should be writing a criminal referral because you should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity. You belong in prison, Dr. Fauci.
Mr. Chairman, I have a...
Yeah. He does belong in prison. And the unfortunate part is, you know, I, as one member of Congress, one of 435 members of Congress, am one of the few that was willing to say that to his face. But that's exactly the message that I feel like he deserved. And I think that there should be much further accountability brought for the people that did this, because the truth was out early on COVID. People died because they weren't allowed to take ivermectin. We were shamed and said that was horse paste. We were forced to wear masks that don't work. I mean, how many times have you seen videos of a virologist going into a lab? Do they wear a paper mask? No. They have a full bodysuit sealed all over. The science was clear. The science was clear, and what they did, not only to all of us, but what they did to people all over the world, was wrong. It was absolutely wrong. Now, they're still pushing and forcing vaccines. I went to the UGA Alabama game this past Saturday with President Trump. Had a great time with President Trump. It was really rough as a UGA fan and graduate of UGA. Whew. Yeah, go Dogs, but I'm still feeling hurt from that game. But I saw advertised there in the stadium to get vaccinated. You know, and they're advertising to get vaccinated to a population of college students that are healthy. And, you know, I think it should be a freedom of choice. I don't think it should be pressed on the population. It really should have always been a choice. They never should have forced our military to take a vaccine. They never should have forced people to take a vaccine in order to keep their job, in order to feed their family, in order to keep the roof over their head. That should have never happened. Should have never happened. We'll go ahead and play the third video here for the COVID Select Committee.
Nothing creates vaccine hesitancy like ignoring people when they're reporting problems with vaccines that they're being mandated and forced to take. Vaccines that they have to take in order to keep their job. Vaccines that they have to take in order to be able to go to restaurants, go into stores, go into public places. Vaccines the doctors are telling them to take, but yet when they're screaming from the rooftops, something's wrong with the vaccines, I'm telling you, that creates vaccine hesitancy. The other problem is when you get censored on the internet or you get permanently banned on social media, when you were a victim of a vaccine injury or a doctor trying to report what you were seeing in your patients from vaccines. This chart right here, this represents vaccine reports from all vaccines since 1990, 34 years. This represents reports on the COVID-19 vaccines since December of 2020, less than 4 years. Something's wrong with the vaccines. And just because people are walking around and they've been vaccinated and they're not reporting a problem doesn't mean other people aren't having problems. And this has been virtually ignored. So much so, not only has it been ignored, it's also been censored and banned and labeled misinformation. This was a coordinated effort with the White House, the Surgeon General, the CDC, the Department of Homeland Security, CISA, Stanford, and the Virility Project. As a matter of fact, real people with real problems got censored, such as Maggie DeGaray. Maggie was a young child who developed severe symptoms and is still has a feeding tube today. She is a very sick child. That happened from the COVID vaccine. But her mother was taken off of the internet when she tried to report the problem. Can you imagine trying to report a problem with your child who's having a real vaccine injury, but yet social media takes you off? And the White House says it's okay, and Department of Homeland Security says it okay, and they label it misinformation? We can talk about funding these government programs and throwing more money at these government programs, but that isn't going to change the fact that vaccines should have never been forced on all these people to begin with. And if we want to talk about diseases like measles being transmitted among Americans, then perhaps we should talk about border security and stopping people who are unvaccinated from coming across our border and allowed to come into our country, and then supporting them with taxpayer funds. I think that's a serious issue.
The story of Maggie DeGaray is shocking. I cannot, as a mother, I cannot fathom to even think if my child had a vaccine injury and I could not go to the public to talk about what happened to my child. If my social media got taken down, if my voice was silenced, and the government who was forcing the vaccine refused to listen to the story about my daughter. I cannot imagine that. But her one case is only one case of many. There have been an outlandish amount of reports on the vaccine injury adverse website. These are self-reported claims, not just from individuals, also from doctors, also from clinics and hospitals. But the CDC, the FDA, the federal government has ignored it completely and done everything they can to hide it. And I will never, ever forget the fact that under Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House last Congress, when she made the rule that everyone had to wear a mask, and I want you all to understand that Nancy Pelosi herself, with her own mask rule, sat on the House floor with that mask like a chin strap, okay? Pulled down, talking to Steny Hoyer next to her. I've got pictures and videos of it. And yet I was fined every single time I walked on the House floor without mine. That is a hypocrisy that I will never forget. I boldly said, I'm not wearing my mask, and you want to know why I did that? I wanted children in school and their parents to be able to stand up to their school boards and have someone in Congress doing the exact same thing. Because that's my job. I'm not supposed to just lead with my words. My job is to lead with my actions. And I did that, and I got fined over $100,000 serving as a member of Congress last Congress. And then in 2022, when it was not X, it was Twitter, before Elon Musk bought Twitter, they took my personal Twitter account down. It was permanently banned based on my statements I had posted and tweeted about COVID-19, about not forcing and mandating vaccines, about the fact that these should have never been approved in the first place. They were fast-tracked, and it's wrong to force it on the American people. So in my second election, they took down my personal Twitter account where my opponent was able to raise money and campaign and attack me, and I was not able to do the same thing. That's election interference. And that happened under full Democrat control of the government. Now, thankfully, and I'll say this, I say it all the time, thankfully Elon Musk bought Twitter, renamed it X, yep, and he restored my personal account after a year, after 1 year. And guess when I got it back? After I won that election. Yep. So I fully understand the censorship that you all have gone through. I've gone through it myself. And I bring this up, I know this was a couple of years ago, but I bring it up because I truly am telling you, as an American citizen, this has nothing to do with our gender, our race, our religion, our politics. Every single one of us must never forget the tyranny that happened under COVID-19, because that affected all of us. And I think it's truly important to remember. Now we're going to move on. That was COVID Select. I just gave you a small sampling. Oh my goodness, I could have made a movie for y'all tonight. I wanted to. My staff was like, Marjorie, they're not going to stay here all night. I was like, I don't know, they might. We're going to move on to oversight committee hearings. And wow, I had a hard time picking which ones I wanted to show you. They fought me. I was like, show them all. And they said, no, you got to pick a few. So I picked a few. And I want to start with one in particular. And this is an issue that doesn't get enough attention from most members of Congress, especially Republicans. They run away from this issue. And this is the issue of January 6th. Okay. Now, January 6th, I was third day on the job, everybody. Third day on the job as a brand new member of Congress. I can tell you right now, I could hardly find my way from my office to the Capitol and through the tunnels underground. I couldn't tell you where the bathroom was. I was still trying to learn the whole thing. And that was when we were certifying the 2020 election. Now, I proudly objected to Joe Biden's Electoral College votes because I know there was election fraud in 2020. I have no problem talking about that. I have no problem telling you that. I don't care if it's the press. I don't care if it's somebody that's mad at me. That's what I did, and I would do it again today and tomorrow and the next day. Thank you. But I didn't expect what was going to happen on January 6th, and I think we need further investigation into how many feds were involved in that. And we know they were involved. We know they were in there. And shame on Congress, shame on the federal, shame on the FBI, shame on the DOJ for not being transparent about that. Everybody deserves that. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, or you don't even care. Everybody deserves that information. Now, we know on January 6th, there was massive protest of the 2020 election. But we can also compare other protests that were literally the same year, or actually the previous year, but less than 6 months before that. We can talk about the Summer of Love, where we saw night after night after night riots all over the country, and they were declared riots. They would start as a protest earlier in the day, and then they would be declared a riot because of the massive amount of violence that happened in cities all over America. I mean, we can talk about Minnesota was unbelievable. But this is where BLM protesters, Antifa joined in, and they were burning cities, burned 93 police vehicles, attacking federal courthouses, vandalizing monuments, attacking police stations, attacking and injuring police night after night, looting businesses, destroying property, and people were killed in the streets. Now, over 95% of those protesters, rioters, charges were dropped. They would be arrested, they would bail out, and they would take back to the streets. And everyone needs to remember that the current candidate for president of the United States, our current Vice President, Kamala Harris, shared a bail bond link for the Minnesota Freedom Fund that bailed out criminal rioters so they could take back to the streets and do it all over again. Now, January 6th defendants, election protesters, rioters, that has been a different scenario. These people's charges hardly ever get dropped. As a matter of fact, they are prosecuted to the hilt. They are put in prison, some of them 4 months, 6 months. These are grandmothers, elderly people that walk through open doors in the Capitol with their phones, videoing, thanked Capitol Police. Thank you for all you do. Thank you so much. Walked around in awe. They might have said, Trump won. They may have said, stop the steal. And then they walked right back out the open doors that they came in, only to have the FBI show up at their home, raid their houses, treat them like they are terrorists living in this nation, then prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney Matthew Graves for the Department of Justice. Well, we had Matthew Graves come before our committee. And so I delivered a special message to him, and we can go ahead and play that video.
The time for weaponizing the Department of Justice needs to come to an end. And because you refuse to prosecute real criminals that are violating all the crimes here in Washington, D.C., and you want to talk about D.C. residents, they are victims of your abuse of power. And because of that, I am introducing articles of impeachment on you, Mr. Graves, and I yield back the remainder of my time.
Matthew Graves is a U.S. attorney that holds the special position to prosecute crime in Washington, D.C., and let me tell you, there's a lot of it. Washington, D.C. is one of our nation's most dangerous cities. That's our nation's capital. That's where your school children may go on trips to go visit and study the history of Washington, D.C. They come to the Capitol, they see the Washington Monument, they see everything there in Washington, and it is one of the highest murder rates in America. Rape, carjackings, assault. This happens every single day in Washington, D.C. Matthew Graves spends most of his time prosecuting January 6th defendants who protested election. Now, listen, I'm not going to defend violent rioters on January 6th. I won't defend them. But a lot of these people that get prosecuted and put in jail were not violent. They didn't attack police officers. They didn't damage the Capitol. They walked in through open doors and they walked back out. Now, here for me, here's how it is. If the Department of Justice was prosecuting BLM rioters and Antifa rioters the exact same way, protesters the exact same way, I wouldn't be complaining because I think justice should be fair. But the fact that they are persecuting these people for being Trump supporters, Trump voters, and protesting an election, that is a serious problem to me. It's not fair. This is not the United States of America that I think we should be. This is not the justice system that is the right justice system to have in our country, and it should not be tolerated by America. It shouldn't. Now, there's a certain special piece of legislation that I introduced I do want to tell you about because it's so significant. There's a young man, his name is Matthew Perna. Matthew Perna was one of the nonviolent protesters on January 6th. This was a young man that showed up to the Capitol, protested the election, stood for election integrity, never assaulted a police officer, didn't touch him, never caused any damage. But Matthew Graves, the U.S. Attorney for the Department of Justice, prosecuted Matthew Perna so harshly that Matthew Perna completely lost the hope and will to live and committed suicide. Now, Matthew Perna is not the only one, not the only January 6th defendant that has committed suicide under the intense weight of the federal government and the Department of Justice that has come down on these people. As a matter of fact, there's 5 or 6 more that I know of suicides of January 6th defendants. You don't hear these people's names on the news at night. You don't hear anything about them, but their stories, their families, their attorneys, they make their way to my office because I'm one of the few members of Congress that will actually talk to them. And it shouldn't be that way. I introduced the Matthew Lawrence Perna Act of 2024, and what it does is it's a prohibition of detention for non-violent political protesters. Look, this can go for any protester. It can go for left, right, and in the middle. Any protester that is non-violent, it prohibits them being detained, and they shouldn't be. This bill bars the unjust detention of nonviolent political protesters and allows for civil action against any violations. Fair and speedy trials. It ensures a fair and speedy trial. Aren't we ensured that anyways as Americans? It limits government surveillance and investigation, restricts the government's ability to use the national defense or foreign policy justifications to deny citizens knowledge of government surveillance or investigations. Don't you want to know if you're being surveyed by the government or investigated? This important legislation, I will tell you, should have the support of Democrats and Republicans, but it doesn't. And I'm informing you of this because you have the right to know as an American, especially given the fact that our Speaker of the House reauthorized FISA this year. Warrantless spying on Americans. That was reauthorized this year. So it is my duty to inform you this. As your representative, you need to understand the power and the weight of the government can crush people so harshly that they go and commit suicide. And that has been happening. All right, so we will move on to someone who is not receiving the full weight of the Department of Justice. As a matter of fact, the Department of Justice gives this family a lot of favor. This is the first family, the Biden family. And Hunter Biden, you guys know who that is? Okay. Well, Hunter Biden, he first defied our subpoena and refused to show up, but then he finally came before our committee, and I'll show you guys what happened when our chairman recognized me to finally speak to him. Let's go ahead and play that video.
Ms. Greene from Georgia for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, Hunter. Apparently you're afraid of my words.
Whoa! Oh.
I'd like to reclaim my time, Mr. Chairman.
Kind of burst their bubble. Wow, that's too bad.
I think it's clear and obvious for everyone watching this hearing today that Hunter Biden is terrified of strong conservative Republican women because he can't even face my words as I was about to speak to him. What a coward.
I don't know why he didn't stick around to talk to me. Bless his heart. You know, I have to say it was really shocking to see him run out of the room. I think he was afraid I might ask him some very serious questions. You know, the Biden family represents the absolute abuse and corruption that happens by those that hold power. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I think this goes across the political spectrum. I don't think it's limited to Democrats. I think it goes all the way across, and I think it has been going on probably, I don't know, probably longer than we've all been alive, if I really think about it and I'm honest about it. And the Biden family, you think about Joe Biden, our current president of the United States, who I don't think is in the White House right now. As a matter of fact, what is he doing? Yeah, he's on the beach, he's tanning, he's napping, who knows what he's doing. And so think about this man. This man held office longer than I have been alive, and I have to admit to you guys, I just had my 50th birthday this past year. Thank you. And so this guy was a senator for all these years in Washington, D.C., then served as vice president with Barack Obama for 8 years. So imagine his Rolodex. Just think about that. If you're a powerful senator for decades in Washington, D.C., and then you are vice president of the United States, you got everybody's phone number. You have met with every foreign leader there is. Well, here's the situation. Now, everybody knew that he was going to run for president. It was no secret that Joe Biden was going to run for president. And this family, Hunter Biden, James Biden, because we did the investigation and we have the receipts, they abused Joe Biden's power. And they were able to set up business deals all over the world, And so when I talk to you about ordinary citizens like Matthew Perna, who was a teacher, who committed suicide after the Department of Justice coming down so harshly on him after he nonviolently protested the election on 2020 at the Capitol, but yet Hunter Biden, the president's son, runs out of the oversight committee room because he's scared of my questions. This is serious. But you have to understand this. You cannot forget it, because we're in a critical time in history where it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, or independent. No matter where you land on the political spectrum, when you see abuse of power like that, you should not ignore it. You should not ignore it. And I didn't have a chance to ask him the good questions I wanted to ask him. I think I should have. So let's go ahead and we'll go with the next video about the Biden crime family.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe Biden continues to lie to the American people about his role in his family's businesses. In 2020, he stood up on stage of a presidential debate and told the American people that his family didn't take any money from China. That was a lie. Not only was it a lie, he knew it was a lie. He knew it because he met with his son Hunter Biden's Chinese business associates. I want to talk about CEFC, which is the China Energy Fund Committee. Mr. Bobulinski, who is Chairman Yi?
Chairman Yi was the chairman of CEFC.
Thank you. Jim Biden told the FBI and IRS that Chairman Yi was the protege of Xi Jinping, the leader of China and the Chinese Communist Party. Mr. Bobulinski, Rob Walker told this committee that Joe Biden met Chairman Yi. Are you aware of that? Yes or no?
I am now. I wasn't at the time.
And Joe Biden also met with you, is that right?
Yes, he did. Twice.
Who is Director Zhang?
Director Zhang was the number 2 at CEFC.
The executive director of CEFC, the number 2?
Yeah, he was the number 2 executive, but really the point person that I worked with and the Biden family worked with, and he's the individual that Hunter Biden was shaking down at the end of July 2017, demanding that they fund the $10 million. They ultimately sent $5, but $10 million directly to Hunter Biden's account, Owasco.
Thank you, Mr. Bobulinski. I want to show you a text message that Hunter Biden sent to you and his other business associates. I'm holding it right here. I'll read it to you. Hey, Tony, I have an idea. In light of the fact we are at an impasse of sorts, and both James' lawyers and my chairman gave an emphatic no, I think we should all meet in Romania. He's speaking about my chairman. When Hunter Biden came in for his deposition, he said that he was referring to Chairman Yi, and that the rest of your group referred to Zhang as a different chairman. Does this make any sense to you?
That's a lie. I never heard Director Zhang referenced as chairman, and I had direct communications with Director Zhang over WeChat, met him in Romania, met him in Moscow, met him around the world in New York, trying to develop this business, and he was never referred to as the chairman, first of all. Second of all, that makes absolutely no sense in the context of this message, because we are discussing Oneida Holdings, LLC.
Thank
the
you.
Chinese-
So he was not the chairman, just to clarify. Yes
Correct.
or no? Okay. So I want to show you another text. When he said his chairman, he was talking about his dad. This is from Rob Walker. It didn't seem to make much sense to Rob Walker either. So he said that when Hunter, he said this to you, when Hunter was talking about his chairman, he was talking about his dad. When Rob Walker came in to give his transcribed interview to the committee, he basically said, well, Hunter was high or confused or mad. And Rob Walker said that he was just trying to calm things down between you and Hunter. But that doesn't really answer the question about who Hunter Biden is talking about. Hunter Biden lied to this committee. So here, clearly, he says, Rob Walker's saying he's talking about his dad. So I want to be very clear. We've established that Zhang is not the chairman, obviously. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Correct.
Let me show you another message. This message doesn't call Zhang Chairman Zhang, does it? It just says the Chinese want to do business with the Bidens. As a matter of fact, it says, both coming to be my partner, to be partners with the Bidens, with an S. He, Zhang, is implied, has implied that the number one has made it clear and available to him. Who is the number one?
The number one is Xi Jinping.
Xi Jinping, the president of China? Yes or no? The leader of the Communist Party, the CCP,
Yes.
is the number one.
Yes, that's the number one that Hunter was referencing in that message.
Now, let's be very clear. This was in 2017, but I would like to make it known for this committee that Joe Biden told the press in 2016, as a matter of fact, I quote, yeah, I am going to run in 2020. He told the press in 2016 that he was running for president of the United States in 2020. So here is the Bidens doing business in China in 2017 when everybody knew he was planning to be president of the United States. Do you see that to be a serious problem, Mr. Bobulinski?
I do, and I wish this committee would thoroughly investigate it and focus on all the evidence that the SDNY has on CFC. They had FISA warrants, so they were recording conversations, and I wish they disclosed all that data and fact to this committee.
Thank you, Mr. Bobulinski. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
That is a brave man, Tony Bobulinski. That is a brave man, former business partner of Hunter Biden. Yeah, he's still alive, but he has a lot of security, a lot of security. And by the way, the Secret Service doesn't provide it. He has to do that on his own. So he came before our committee and told the American people that the number one, the main one that Hunter Biden and the Biden family was doing business with was the president of China, the president of the Communist Party of China. Like, think about that. That was a Time magazine article that I held up where Joe Biden in 2016 said, yeah, I am. I'm running for president. If you're the president of China, who are you going to make a bet on? You're going to make a bet on that the vice president for 8 years is likely to win an election. And if you want power and influence into the United States and you want special contract and special deals, who are you going to pay? You're going to pay the Biden family. That's a fact. And that's exactly what happened. And you, the American people, you deserve better. You deserve better. Joe Biden should have been impeached. And Hunter Biden and the rest of the family should be prosecuted. And that's absolutely what should be happening. Now we're going to move on to what I consider one of the worst offenses that's happening to you all right now, to all of us as American citizens, and that is the daily invasion into our homeland. The federal government role and responsibility and duty to all 50 of the United States of America is to protect the states from invasion. And right now, under the Biden-Harris administration, they are not protecting the states from invasion. Our borders are. Kamala Harris, Vice President, is not protecting the states from invasion. As a matter of fact, she stood by Joe Biden and the rest of the Biden crime family and didn't peep a word about their dirty little business with China, Romania, Ukraine, and others. And that's a fact. So we had an opportunity in the Homeland Security Committee, which I serve on, and it was an extremely important opportunity, and I'm really proud of it because I was basically on my own, taking my own privilege resolution of articles of impeachment and forcing a floor vote on the House floor of Congress, forcing Congress to vote yes or no on impeachment of Alejandro, the Secretary of Homeland. And I told them, I will do this every single week. I don't care who it is. I'll make all of you vote yes or no on his impeachment every single week until we take this seriously. And so finally, and my committee was all about it. Homeland was all about it because you want to know something? We do the interviews with the parents whose children are murdered by illegal aliens, raped and murdered. We do the interviews with the people, the border ranchers and farmers that live right there and have their land invaded every single day. We do the interviews with all of the people affected by the border invasion, and we knew the stats, we knew the stories, we know the statistics. And so when it came time for us to impeach Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, we were all about it and we got it done. So we can go ahead and play that video now.
I thank the chairman. Madam Speaker, I rise in strong support of HRES 863, impeaching Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Alejandro Mayorkas is guilty of aiding and abetting the complete invasion of our country by criminals, gang members, terrorists, murderers, rapists, and over 10 million people from over 160 countries into American communities all across the United States. His willful refusal to secure the border has bankrupted communities, closed down U.S. schools that our children attend, drowned hospitals, and incapacitated law enforcement while empowering criminal cartels and illegal aliens. My Democrat colleagues argue that one cannot be impeached over policy differences. Well, I argue that breaking our laws is more than just policy differences. 300 dead Americans every day from fentanyl poisoning is more than just a policy difference, it's murder. Today in my own office, narcotics law enforcement officers from Georgia told me that 7 out of 10 Oxycontins or Percocets sold on the street are laced with fentanyl, and that comes directly across the border from Mexico. Secretary Mayorkas has violated numerous provisions in the Immigration and Nationality Act, including unlawfully directing DHS to mass parole illegal aliens into the U.S. when federal law specifically prohibits this, and unlawfully implementing catch and release policies when federal law specifically mandates the detention and removal of inadmissible aliens. In fact, detention facilities under Mayorkas have been mostly vacant because of such unlawful policies. The largest detention facility in California, which can house almost 2,000 illegals, is currently housing only 6 illegal aliens. He has violated his oath of office and breached the public trust by willfully refusing to ensure the laws passed by Congress and signed into law by the President are faithfully executed as required by Article 2 of the Constitution. He has allowed over 10 million illegal border crossers to invade our country, approximately 2 million of whom are known gotaways. These are people who have completely evaded U.S. authorities and are roaming the interior of the American communities, assaulting, raping, and murdering Americans. And God help us if we have a terrorist attack on our land. His subversion of the law has resulted in the highest number of illegal alien encounters in a single day, in the highest number of illegal alien encounters in a single month, and the highest number of illegal alien encounters in a single year, surpassing every national record on each account.
Gentlewoman's time has expired.
I yield the lady an additional 15 seconds.
His willful refusal to enforce the law has resulted in the most egregious national security crisis in the history of our country. Democrats are in a quandary. Either they must own the policies of murder and crime of American citizens, or they can admit Secretary Mayorkas has broken federal laws and vote to impeach Secretary Mayorkas.
I'm proud to tell you that my articles of impeachment of Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas passed in the House of Representatives. But I sadly inform you that the Democrats chose to stand by the policies that have led to over 13,000 murderers willfully let into our country, over 15,000 rapists and criminals willfully let into our country, and many other criminals from all over the world. The Democrats chose to stand by that. And Chuck Schumer and the Democrat-controlled Senate, by the way, Kamala Harris is president of the Senate, is vice president, they refused to hold a trial for Alejandro Mayorkas. And so nothing happened. Now remember, the Democrats impeached President Trump twice. So this is the state of affairs in America. An illegal invasion happening every single day. Look, right now, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to the Biden-Harris administration, you can pull out your smartphones. And not only can you pull out your smartphones, anyone around the world can pull out a smartphone and go to the App Store and download a taxpayer-funded app called CBP One, O-N-E, CBP One, O-N-E. You can download that app. So let's pretend that we all live in Afghanistan. And let's all say that all of us decide we want to go to America. Okay? Or let's say anywhere in the country, we can live anywhere in the world. All we have to do is pull out our handy dandy cell phones. And guess what? Everybody has one all over the world for the most part. And you download an app. And you can go on this app and you can say, let me pick a date that I want to enter America. And you get to pick your date and you get to pick your time. Oh, I don't want to go early. I might want to sleep in that morning. So you can show up 11 a.m., maybe 2 p.m., whatever time is convenient for you. And then here's another thing. Well, you don't have to just try to climb a border wall that President Trump built. You don't have to try to invade through some rugged mountain range along our border. No. For your convenience, all you have to do is pick a port of entry. Well, maybe you desire to go to California, so you pick San Diego. Maybe you want to go to Texas, so you pick El Paso. You can pick your port of entry, your date and your time. And then all you have to do is make your way and you show up there on that date and time and you present yourself. Do you have to have an ID? No. As a matter of fact, you can discard your driver's license, you can discard your passport somewhere along the way, and you can show up and say, I have an appointment to enter the United States. And over 95% of those people from all around the world are paroled into our country. And then they are welcomed in all over. They're given bus tickets, plane tickets. They're giving all types of assistance from taxpayers, taxpayer-funded assistance. Depending on what state and city they go into, they can receive apartments, they can receive debit cards, schooling, health care. And these people are given a court date to come back and show up at court to see if they can stay in the United States. Over 95% are allowed in. Under the former administration, under President Trump's administration, we had something called Remain in Mexico, where people had to remain in Mexico until their court date. They weren't allowed to come into the United States. But under the Biden-Harris administration, if you want to know why young people like Laken Riley and many others have been brutally murdered and raped and killed, or maybe killed from an illegal alien that doesn't have a driver's license driving a car and they hit them in a car wreck. If you want to know why you keep seeing that on the news, it's because these people have been let in our country. And I'll tell you right now, it is not racist. It is not hateful. It is not wrong. It is not un-American to demand that our government protect us, keep us safe, and keep us secure. It's absolutely the right thing to do. And just to follow up on how dangerous it is right now in America because of these insane America Last border policies. There have been over 2 million people, over 2 million that have come into our country that Border Patrol never stopped, never talked to, never caught, never even was able to find out what their name was, what country they were coming from, and where they went. Now, you all have watched the news like I have for the past 4 years. We have watched all of the things happening across the world, and we would be absolute fools, absolute just ignorant fools to think that there aren't people coming across our border that want to kill us. We all remember 9/11. Now, add that to the fact we're watching the Middle East explode right now. It only took 19 terrorists to kill 3,000 people on 9/11. Only took 19. We've had over 2 million people come in, and I can tell you right now, I had to fight with Democrats on the Homeland Committee over a week ago about a bill that I introduced, and thankfully I passed on the committee because I was demanding to know that Homeland Security release to you all, the American people, how many special interest aliens come in monthly. I just said, I want to know every single month, tell us how many special interest aliens come in. Special interest aliens are people that come from terrorist countries or have known terrorist ties. And right now, the Biden-Harris administration refuses to release the number. I didn't ask them for their names. I said, how many? And what country are they coming from? And they fought me and the rest of my Republican colleagues about releasing that number. This is the state of our country. This is where we are. And we shouldn't be in this critical of a situation. We shouldn't be. This should be easy. I would think, okay, there's political differences, but this should be one thing we all agree on, right? I mean, America's our home. We all live here. If we're all in this home together, we should want to keep it safe from people that want to cause us harm. And so I've been fighting hard on your behalf to do that because I think our country and our home is worth fighting for every single one of us. And I believe in legal immigration. We want people to come in legally. We do. We want that to happen. But we want them to come through the front door, not sneaking in the window or coming in the back door, right? I think that's the right thing to do. Now, I want to make sure that I'm being respectful of your time, and you guys have put in a bunch of questions. So I'm going to go ahead and move to these questions because honestly, I could stand up here and talk to you guys all night long and my staff would be in the back waving at me to be quiet. But we'll go ahead and get started on questions. And thank you. Thank you for coming and spending time with me and letting me talk to you all. If reelected, will you push for your Congress to hold the airlines accountable for child trafficking? A stewardess told me across the industry, these sponsors on these planes are extorting children around the world. Airlines, pilots, security all know and allow it. 325,000 children missing. It's not just on the airlines. And of course, oh my gosh, I'm a mom, and I can tell you right now, that's the most important thing we should be doing is finding children. There are so many missing migrant children. Migrant children are missing. And if we care about kids, we should care about kids that are being trafficked into our country. I think you guys probably read the New York Times article like I did. I was pretty impressed the New York Times did it, reporting how many of these migrant children are working in child labor in America. Can you imagine? But that's where we are. Yes, I can promise you, absolutely, I will do everything I can to look for trafficked children, not just migrant children, any children. Every single child's life matters. So thank you for that question. let's see, ATF overreach, citizens as well as, sorry guys, I'm having a hard time reading this one. Businesses, thank you. Where do you stand on abolish the ATF? Well, I introduced a bill to abolish the ATF, so I think I have a pretty solid stance on it. I am a big supporter of the Second Amendment, and we have plenty of laws on the books to regulate guns and all of that. As a matter of fact, we have too many, but I think those issues can be handled without the ATF. With our hurricane victims, why are we sending money to Ukraine and Israel when our people need it? Great question, Charles. I think it was just in the past week that the president, whether he knows it or not, sent another $2 or $3 billion to Ukraine. I see Ukraine and Israel as two separate situations. They're different wars. I've never voted to fund the war in Ukraine. As a matter of fact, in the beginning, I was one of the few. There was only a few of us that were willing to vote no against that funding. And so I think America's role in the war in Ukraine with Russia should be to find a peace resolution. Okay, that's my stance, 100%. In saying that, I think America's role should be defending our own country. That is so important, and that's not being done. I also would love to see. I want to see peace for Israel. I really do. But at the same time, I think they have a right to defend themselves. And I see, while you probably don't know this, I think you have a right to know, you absolutely have a right to know this. So the reason why these are two totally different wars is our government takes your taxpayer dollars and they fund the Ukrainian government at $1 billion with a B every single month. They prop up the Ukrainian government. $1 billion a month goes to pay to fund the government of Ukraine. So, I mean, Ukraine is a complete proxy for a war, United States war with Russia. And then our government, as you have watched all along, is funding most of the funding for the war against Russia in Ukraine. And what we're doing is wrong. It's completely wrong. Our government, in its proxy war with Russia, is grinding the Ukrainian people down to a stump. And if anyone that says they care about Ukraine, if they really care about Ukraine, they would care about the fact that a whole generation, multiple generations actually, of Ukrainian men are being slaughtered in this war. And these are men that are needed to be husbands, fathers, sons. These are men that are needed to work jobs and be a part of the economy in Ukraine. And that isn't happening because America wants to fight a war with Russia through Ukraine. And I find that repulsive. I do. That's how I see it. And, no matter how you feel about Russia, I'm not a big fan. But I do not think that we should be fighting that war. I think there is an easy pathway to peace. And that's why I support President Trump and his plan to end that war on day one in his next administration. Now, when it comes to Israel, they had, I tell you what, terrorism is nasty. It is real nasty. They had 1,200 of their people, innocent people, slaughtered. And I think they're doing a good job of handling their business. I don't want to see America drug into another Middle Eastern war, though. And that's how I feel. Get these glasses back on. Woo. Okay. When will the House elect a speaker who is not a Democrat puppet? Oh, God bless you, Norman. That's a long answer, isn't it? Well, y'all probably know how I feel on that issue. I think we need to do a better job. It's hard for me to support a speaker that I voted for, by the way. I'll be real honest. I voted for him, but when he turned into a leader that was different than the man I knew before, that was hard for me to support. He told us we would passed 12 separate appropriation bills, and then he brought a 2-part omnibus to the floor. Let me tell you, this omnibus was so beloved by the Democrats that Chuck Schumer didn't change a word, didn't change a letter, a period, or a comma, and passed it straight through the Senate. And that happened in May. And then a week later, this same speaker reauthorized FISA, warrantless spying on Americans, and was the deciding vote on the passage of that. That one was really hard to take, really hard to take. And then another week later, so this was all in a 3-week time span, after the 2-part omnibus, after reauthorizing FISA, he then funded $60 billion to the war in Ukraine. I couldn't take it. But I think the hard part is the rest of the country didn't see what I had seen yet. But I think everyone sees it now. Everyone sees it now. If we're lucky enough to hold the House next Congress, I'm going to do everything I can to elect a Speaker of the House that doesn't do the bidding of Democrats and that serves. Oh, honey, they wouldn't elect me. I'd actually make them work. I think the people would, but not a bunch of those people up there. That's the swamp we're talking about. Oh, I love this. No reading glasses required. Thank you. On the 18th of September, former President Trump was on Gutfield. Oh, that was a good interview. One of their topics was the illegal drug problem. He stated that drug dealers average killing 500 people a year. That's 6,000 a year for 12 dealers. President Trump said he had talked at length with China's President Xi Jinping. That's Hunter Biden's business partner, by the way. President Xi said he does not have a drug problem. I'm so familiar with this story. Because there is an immediate death penalty for drug dealers. You know what President Trump calls that? He calls it quick trial. Have y'all heard him tell the story? President Trump seemed to like the idea, but doesn't think the U.S. is ready for that. Would you support this or something like it should he be reelected and proposes it? Or would you be willing to propose this or something like it? I tell you what, I never vote for any piece of legislation until I've read it. So I'd have to see the legislation, and I think that's important. However, I think it is such a serious problem, given the fact, and I'll give you a quick statistic here. For the 14th district in Georgia, fentanyl deaths have increased by over 350% under this administration. You don't want to know what that is, everybody? That's murder. And so if drug dealers are repeat offenders and intentionally murdering Americans with fentanyl, yes, then I think the death penalty should apply. And then I want to go a step further on the death penalty. The death penalty should apply to child rapists. Child traffickers. Like a certain famous rapper in the news, right? Okay, that is the type of criminal that we should see the death penalty for, and I think it should be public. Don't mess with the kids. Will only citizens be allowed to vote? Oh, great question. Okay, so I met with, y'all are gonna have to be patient on time. I met with the Secretary of State, 2 officials today from the Secretary of State. Election integrity, I'm telling you, it is one of the most important issues. It should be important to every American. Doesn't matter how you vote. You should care about fair elections. Non-citizens should never, ever vote in our elections. Ever, ever. Ever. This makes no sense. I guarantee you, we can't go show up in some foreign country and go vote. Are you kidding me? They probably chop off our hand in some countries. And let's be real. So, no, they should not be voting here. So what I was told today, and I'm just delivering what they said to me, is that they are currently auditing the voter rolls, removing non-citizens. And I said, so are you telling me that you're removing all non-citizens off the voter rolls by the election? And they said yes. Now, that was the answer that I was given, but I'm going to tell you what, I'm holding my breath until after November 5th. And that is personally where I am at, because I saw the evidence, I read it, I talked to so many people. Yes, we had voter fraud in 2020 on a massive scale, on a massive scale. I don't care, you can call me a conspiracy theorist, you can call me any name in the book, it won't hurt my feelings, they do it all the time. But I know for a fact that that election was stolen in 2020, and I'm gonna sit and wait until after this one to make sure that it was, in the words of Brad Raffensperger, a perfect election, okay? That's where I stand. Why has there been no attempt to use the 25th Amendment on Biden? That's so good. Force Kamala to do the thing now she is promising. Well, you know, that would force Kamala to actually be a leader. Is she a leader? No. Yeah, there. She just wants to be elected president. She is auditioning and asking for a job right now when she's already in charge. You know, everybody knows what this is. So if she uses the 25th Amendment against Joe Biden, she has to admit that as Vice President of the United States, she knows everything that's wrong with him. And she can't do that. If only we had a just society, right? Why are troops overseas instead of to the hurricane victims and money for? Great question, wonderful question. Why isn't the 82nd Airborne there rescuing people in Western North Carolina? I don't know. Again, I can't tell you. Money for relief. They're waiting they said today, I think it was Speaker Mike Johnson, as a matter of fact, said on Fox News, said that it will take maybe a month or more, of course, after the election, until we know how much money has to be allocated. Look, if it were up to me and others like Donald Trump and others who already, by the way, went to South Georgia, has a GoFundMe. I mean, he's a private citizen right now, former president of the United States. But we should be using every resource we have to go in and rescue Americans. And to even give a penny or any ounce of our military resources or government resources to a foreign country right now, when Americans are suffering, dying, and missing, is unforgivable. Unforgivable. That's what I think. How can we get accountability for the bureaucrats that didn't answer questions or lied during congressional hearings? Well, I think you guys know the answer to that. I am a small business owner in Paulding. My facility is in Rockmart. I am terrified of Commie Kamala. What things can you do locally to support our growth? Largest need is tax breaks. Great question. Thank you for reminding me of this. The current tax code expires this year. This year, the current tax law will expire. Now, whoever controls the House of Representatives will write the next tax code, the tax law. Whoever controls the Senate will then vote on it, and whoever is in the White House will sign it into law. What you all need to understand, this is the most important thing you can understand. The Democrats in Washington, D.C. do not think that there is a spending problem in Washington, even though we are $35 trillion in debt. The Democrats in Washington think there is a revenue problem. They don't think they have enough of your money. They are going to raise your taxes. So what can you do to prevent that? The solution happens on Election Day. And I think you should tell everyone you know about the solution to stop that from happening. It's extremely important. We're talking about everything from your income tax to the death tax. And they will take generational wealth. They will. They're going to raise the death tax, wipe out generational farmers, wipe out generational small businesses, wipe out generational wealth. And that opportunity will happen after this election. So that one's important. If you have one issue that you can talk to people about, it should be tax policy. That's all about the money that you keep in your pocket, the money that you keep in your checking account, savings account, and how much you have to write that check to the IRS for. And never forget, the IRS is armed. And that's the scariest part about it. So tax policy is big, you guys. It is a really important one. God bless you. Guess what? I am too. Illegals receive $4,000 a month, but seniors on Social Security receive an average of $1,200. Oh, something is wrong with this. Yes, Ronnie, that is extremely horrifying. It's honest to God, it's treason. I don't have any other word for it. It's just wrong. Help Americans first. I agree. Americans first, 100%. With all the commercial construction going on in the Rome area, oh, this is great. Are those jobs going to go to immigrants or citizens of the United States? Well, I'm not personally doing any construction in Rome, so I'm not hiring any illegals. There are laws against that, but everybody knows the reality of it. So I think that Americans should definitely be getting those jobs. And again, this is a border security issue. You're giving me the wrap it up? We have some more questions.
Leave time at 8.
Who's making us leave?
The venue.
Oh, the venue. Do they have a movie they're showing tonight? Do I have any more movies I can show? Okay. What time is it? I don't even have a clock. Oh.
Ask the mayor for more time. It's pretty simple, right?
First, thanks for the job you are doing for us. Second, who's running the country? Joe Biden thinks he is. Who's running the country is the unelected bureaucrats. That's the reality, okay? They're people you've never met before, you don't know their name, and you didn't vote for them. People like Jake Sullivan, people like Antony Blinken, people like Lloyd Austin. These are the people running the country right now. And yeah, the deep state, that's right. And it is a very powerful group. And so that's who's running the country right now. And I hope we can change that, ladies and gentlemen. All right, can we do a few more, Gavin? Okay, people are demanding it. What can be done about senior housing? Keep rising every month, it seems. This is all inflation related. We are on a limited income and soon will not be able to afford them. I agree. What's happening to senior citizens is outrageous. The inflation, it's government spending, and I blame both parties. I'm not even going to stand up here and defend Republicans for it. It's both parties have overspent your money. We should have a balanced budget amendment, and that's even the bare minimum. We should be spending way less than we are taking in. And what it's done to senior citizens who've worked their entire lives, paid their taxes, and now inflation is making life unaffordable. I really apologize to you. It should not be this way, and it's completely unfair. There's a tax proposal by one of the candidates that will not tax Social Security checks. And I think you know who that one is. Might be a question, maybe it's a statement. Would like to know why the nut that was shooting at Trump, you mean the Democrat that was shooting at Trump, on his golf course isn't in Guantanamo Bay being interrogated. Well, it's the Democrat-controlled Department of Justice handling that, ladies and gentlemen. I think yeah. Well, the only people trying to kill Trump are Democrats. I'll be real honest about that. I know they're claiming it's foreign governments, but the facts are the facts. Please vote to stop taxing Social Security. I'll never tax your Social Security. And seniors should be exempt from all taxes. I totally agree. You've paid enough. We've pondered, we've worked our entire lives. Thank you for being our voice. You are welcome. I'll continue to be your voice if you allow me. Thank you. Marjorie, I'm so thankful that you're my Congresswoman. We need a fighter for women in DC. I have a disability. Do you know any plans Trump has to secure Social Security and our health care at a price those of us who are living on limited funds can sustain? No tax on it. We covered that one. No tax on Social Security. It won't happen. And our strong lady who takes no BS. I won't take any BS. I can't promise you. Love and safety to you. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. I promise you we will protect your Social Security as much as I have the power to do it. I'm hurrying. Illegals, crime do not affect people the same way. Why aren't they talking about all of the tax dollars are legal? Illegals are getting while seniors, veterans, and college graduates are struggling. Money is an issue that will piss people off. Amen. They get money. Hey, y'all should write down what you really think. I get to read it. They get money for cars, to buy homes, food trucks, other businesses, immigration attorneys, while Americans are struggling. Yes, Americans are struggling. Hey, this is being live streamed on my social media. So anybody that's watching this right now, people in my district are sick and tired of this bullshit. Okay? Sick and tired of it. And that is an official statement. Sorry, y'all. My mom would be so mad. The globalist movement through the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, are greatly concerning and account for much of the world gone mad, especially here in the U.S. What can you do to get the UN out of the U.S.'s business? Amen. Yeah. Amen. I see the UN as one of the most significant threats to our constitutional republic. Yeah, when they're dragging us off to war all the time, right? I fully and completely, I want to tell you guys some of my votes. I voted to protect against the U.S. entering the World Health Organization. That's not the UN, but I wanted you guys to know that. I voted to prevent foreign adversaries, including China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, from taking ownership or control of U.S. agriculture and businesses. Yep. I have voted to protect babies who survived botched abortions. As a matter of fact, I will not vote to fund or support any abortion, period. And that's where I stand. I want to go ahead and tell you some others. I voted on the SAVE Act to require proof of citizenship in order to register to vote in federal elections. Like I said, no non-citizens voting. I voted to provide $3 billion in critical funding for veterans benefits to ensure disability compensation, pensions, and other benefits for our veterans. I voted to pass the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act to extend Trump tax credits, expand child tax credits, and deliver over $600 billion in relief for families and small businesses. Chuck Schumer would not pass that bill. I voted to require the same Secret Service standards in determining the number of agents to protect presidents, vice presidents, and major presidential and vice presidential candidates and protect Donald John Trump's life. I voted to require Department of Homeland Security to detain illegal aliens who assault police officers and other first responders. We will protect our police. We will. I voted to support illegal aliens who commit domestic violence and sex offenses. You should know that Democrats would not pass that bill. Chuck Schumer refused to bring it up in the Senate. Shameful. I voted to prohibit funding sanctuary cities. No sanctuary cities. And an important piece of legislation that I try to tell everybody about is the Protect Children's Innocence Act. Look, I'm conservative fiscally, but I'm conservative socially too. And I have an important piece of legislation that would stop the gender industrial complex. This is a massive billion-dollar industry that targets kids. and gives them all kinds of hormone blockers, puberty blockers, provides them with surgeries. These are people under the age of 18. Look up Chloe Cole if you don't know who she is. That have mastectomies, are castrated. This is before they're old enough to vote. This is before they're old enough to drive. I mean, some of them to drive. This is before they're old enough to go to college, join the military, buy tobacco, buy alcohol. This is before they're old enough to tattoo ink on their skin. I have a bill that would make it a felony to perform any of these surgeries or medical procedures on kids. This isn't about their sexuality. This is about protecting kids and letting them grow up. And I'll just finish with this, you guys. I stand on the side of good. My votes and how I represent you protect children, protect the life of the unborn. They protect your hard-earned tax dollars and how the government spends it. My votes protect our borders, our safety, our security. And when I go to Washington, D.C., I'm not going to apologize for fighting on your behalf. I won't do it. So tonight, I thank you for joining me. I'm sorry to the venue. I'm sorry to you guys. We've gone over your time, and I greatly appreciate you being patient. But anyways, thanks for coming out. It's really important. Remember, if you have an issue, the ladies are in the back, and they really want to help you out, and they're fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.